Are there any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question actually. So this is sort of a specific question.
Yeah.
So I was looking back at what you're talking about the spreadsheet, how you're organizing that way. So where is the place for the committee to decide where they accept when it sort of at least appears to be just a numbers game?
Yeah, you're right. Well, are you talking about like their final members?
Yeah. So let's say you want to accept 8 members,
right?
And you rank them 1 through 8. I mean,
right.
Why? Under what circumstances would you not just accept 1 through 8?
Right. Okay. So this is how I mean, you probably should have broken this down. What we do is we usually look for the big gap. That's the first thing we look for. Where's there a clear drop off? Like usually we'll find like a gap of like 10 points, and then we'll say, okay, that's the first place we'll cut off. And then so for example, last semester I think we could accept 10 people, so we started with 12, and then we said these first 6 people, they get in automatically because we're at the 12 that we have right here. That's 50%. The first 6 get in automatically, and then what we do is we clump the next 3 and then the next 3, and then we assess these 3 at a time and then these 3 at a time, and then so it's kind of like it's like a pyramid style recruitment in that kind of aspect because you kind of like break it up, right? And so so I mean that's kind of how we do it, and like the critical part of that though is the committee input because that's the longest part. We end up meeting for like 2-3 hours, debating this person in, that person in, because we do it first not knowing anyone's names, and then we come back and we reveal the names, and then we're like, oh wait, no, like this person, and then like exactly, well exactly those kind of things. So I mean that's where the committee comes in, I guess, and just some democracy, shall we say?
Yeah.
If they want to join,
all right, who would like to summarize their organization's public relation effort? Who wants to? Anyone? All right. Well, we can go on to the next. All right, you want?
Our PR is not really kind of what you guys do. People that way. A lot of stuff is more word of mouth.
Okay.
We do a lot of the activities there, try to get people involved, and try to really keep up.
Right.
But it's not anything specific to what you guys do.
Okay. Can you think of maybe one thing you'd want to implement? Something that you've learned, or?
I think joining up with a lot of different clubs and organizations to help sponsor events could promote our name a little bit.
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. One of the things we talked about in the 88 whatever was teaming up with food services. That's like so easy, and it just goes over every time. Like I mean, it's always a big success, and it's a good name. We stamp our name on it. People love it. So that's an excellent resource. Anyone else want to share their PR relations for this semester? Okay, that's okay. All right. So how about have you guys started brainstorming the other questions too, or?
kind of like a big
okay.
combination of
All right.
everything.
Well, has anyone who's thought of the questions like to share a possible question for their application? Have you guys thought about that yet?
We actually already have an application process, and ours has 3 questions.
Okay.
And one of the biggest ones is what would you bring to the table for next year? Like, what's a new initiative you want to
bring to the group?
That's great. That's a great question. Write that down.
At Queen's University, we asked what their favorite Queen's concept is.
Okay.
And then we asked what their least favorite Queen's concept is and how they would change it.
Okay.
So
Excellent.
it's really easy for them to answer the favorite one.
Right.
And then the other one they'll answer.
And how they answer it.
And how they answer it and how they'd like to solve it.
Right.
So going that next step in terms of like being an active participant in their
Yeah. Absolutely. That's a great question.
For us at Ithaca, we just closed our organization, and one of the questions that we asked was about staying involved once you become an alumni, and why they think alumni do give back and are still connected,
Right.
and how they hope to do the same thing
Right.
based on being in staff.
Right, absolutely, yeah. And that'll perpetuate your, the success of your organization, absolutely. Okay. Now, what scenarios would you like to incorporate in your group interview? I'll give you another interesting one because this is based on a true story. One of the scenarios we do is you're at an event and you're talking to these performers, but they don't speak any English. So how do you react? What do you do? Those kind of things. And this is something you might never think would come up, but now it's come up multiple times. We've had performing arts who only speak of like Russian and like Chinese and just non-English speaking people. So like, can anyone think of like a scenario that that something odd that you've had to experience that we might want to put people in and see how they do? It's a tough question.
I thought because we do a lot of events with older alumni, that's where most of our alumni come back, and so most of them, their spouses had passed away, and it was an all-girls school, so most of it's women. And so there was one event where we were supposed to mingle and sitting at tables for a dinner, and one woman didn't know anyone, didn't have anyone with her, and was sitting alone.
Right.
So like one of my scenario questions was like, what would you do if you saw that? Like, 'cause you don't know her, she doesn't know anyone, like how do you connect her to the others?
And that's a perfect question, absolutely. Because as part of an ambassador, that's kind of like your duty. When people are standing awkwardly in the corner, your job is to go up there and be like, hey, what's up? Those kind of things. Another example scenario we did was you're at a football game and someone drops down. What do you do? What do you do? What would you do? What would you do? Yeah, if like an alumni drops down, clutching his heart, what would you do?
Well, first I would go to them and try to talk to them, like basically evaluate the situation based on, you can use your common sense of how serious it actually is.
Right.
It could be dramatic. But if they're not being dramatic, and even in any case, you should definitely notify a higher up at the game or whatever. And then if it's really serious, you call like 911.
Absolutely. See, and that's what she's in an organization. Great answer. And then, all right, this is a good one. This has to do with that orientation phase. Make a list of things you wish you knew when you were joining the organization. That's a great one. There's a bunch of things. Can anyone give me like an example of something from the organization that you wish you knew?
A list of members that were already in the organization.
That's great. Could everyone hear a list of all the members already in the organization? I mean, just a list of commitments besides the things from the mission statement. Things like, I wish we knew. I didn't even know like our organization works on a point system. I had no idea. That's just a detail that something that you probably would like to tell them, but haven't thought of telling them yet. Anything else that you guys might think of? Come on, I know you all had some surprises coming in. I'll say another thing for me. I didn't know that I was going to be joining a primarily female organization. I just didn't think about that. Any other? Okay. So this is the last one. Okay. Now we already fielded some questions, but are there any other questions like right now that you may have? Because this is the last one. So. If you don't ask questions, I'm going to cry. It's going to get awkward.
How often do you as a group meet?
We meet once a week on Thursdays at 5 p.m., but if you can't make that, there is a semester-long pre-excused absence form, so it's not like life-changing if you miss it. And our secretary sends out minutes that lists everything we did, so you're never like fully out of the loop.
Along with that question, how do you, like, can you run down a typical meeting, like what you discuss with the group-wide meeting?
We've changed it a little bit this semester. It used to be like a group-wide meeting. Now it's split up into committees. Like I run recruitment, Dan's on my committee. There's annual events, traditions, and fundraising. So we split up into committee time, so it's much more efficient. Like we don't have to meet like 20 extra times for recruitment, and they don't have to meet to plan events at separate times other than our meetings really. So
Just a thing we do. At the beginning of every meeting, we read our mission statement out loud like robots, and then at the end, we sing our alma mater. Which, so that means every person in green and white has by now learned the alma mater. We didn't really have a choice, and it's become a fun thing, honestly. You know, now at football games and basketball games, when people are singing them and like, oh wow, I actually know the words, and like you can sing with your friends and those kind of things. So I mean, that's a little fun thing you can incorporate in your meetings as well. Just another thing I wanted to just touch on, and Teresa touched on this, one of the big changes we did, and this is how I even got into the organization, was we used to give out invitations to the current members of Green and White to pass on to the other, or 2 invitations per member, and you could pass on to 2 of your friends. And that was a very effective system for recruitment in terms of, you know, good, you had consistent quality, you know, high recruitment numbers and those kind of things. But what we really saw is a decline in diversity. We saw a, you know, kind of like a narrowing of minds in the organization. So what we instead tried to do was broaden our recruitment as wide as possible. You know, reaching out to every organization, especially, you know, the multicultural organizations, or, you know, and then go to the Greek organizations, and then going to the Res Life things. We found that overall we got a higher quality and a more open-minded, of like, you know, kind of excited, you know, kind of different crowd of people if we broadened our recruitment. And that's one of the big things, you know, that we've now slowly tried, or we've been transitioning away from. And I mean, if you need to get your numbers up and you're looking for it, invitations work well, but the dynamic recruitment really, really is the way to go. Any other questions? Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time. If you have any questions,